25th meeting of the 146th Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas is tonight. And thank you for all being here for our August meeting. It seems like a whole month since I've seen you because it's been a whole month since I've seen you. Disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none, we'll move on to minutes.
Thanks, Your Worship. I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on July 13th, 2026 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried. Now we're going to do a little bit of a change in our agenda. We have our auditor here tonight. Rather than make Christine sit around for hours, that's not true here at St. Thomas, but we're going to let you go first tonight. John, do we have to do a change of the agenda that way?
Yes, Your Worship. Just if Council supports it, I just have a motion that Council suspend Section 4.2 of the procedural bylaw on August 10th, 2026, and adjust the order of business on the agenda to consider the 2025 audited financial statements first, followed by the letter related to the minor baseball and the Emsley Field grandstand. If I can just get a mover, moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
All right. Questions or comments on the change of the procedural bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Take it away.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll go through the financial statements page by page as I normally do. Please don't hesitate to ask me any questions if you have them. They are dated. The Canadian Auditing Standards require Council to approve them, those charged with governance. And so once they are approved, we will finalize them. There's also an FIR that will get filed to the ministry, which is a requirement of the ministry based on these financial statements. And so they will follow closely. So they are dated as of today's date. Yep. It is what's called a clean audit opinion, which means that we did not find anything materially incorrect. Materiality for the City of St. Thomas is $2.7 million. However, that does not mean we only look at transactions over that amount. Every revenue and expenditure that flows through, including payroll, is eligible for statistical sampling that we perform and test the controls within the city. Based on those tests and those results, we can then clarify that we are issuing a clean opinion. So all of that preamble, I'll start through the financial statements. So the first statement that I'm going to go through is the consolidated statement of financial position, better known as your balance sheet. And those of you who have heard this spiel before, I'll continue on that. So I come down to the net financial asset number. So about 3/4 of the way down the page. So you'll see last year it was 1.4 million. And again, I'm rounding my numbers. And this year it's $24.2 million this year. So that's an increase. That would be the amount of money that you would have in the bank if everybody paid you what they owe you and you paid off all of your liabilities, which obviously wouldn't happen at any one point in time, but it just allows you to see where you're at the time. Everything below that line are assets that you need to have in place to continue providing the services the city provides. And obviously, you're not able to sell those assets and still provide those services. So they're down below the line, obviously not a liquid asset, what we would call. And so some indicators I look at when I'm looking at these financial statements, one is where your debt levels are at, which you're decreasing in that area. Your net financial assets have increased, and then you've also reinvested in your capital assets above your amortization, the amortization being the using up of your assets. And so you can see there we do have significant increase in the assets, but that also obviously requires significant investment going forward. And so although these are all good news stories, just keep in mind we'll get to a note 20, which is your commitments going forward. Coming down to an overall surplus of $945 million. And as we see when we get to the note on this surplus, the majority of that is invested in those tangible capital assets. Any questions on the balance sheet, specific numbers?
Seeing none.
All right. We'll now go to the revenue and expenditure, this statement of operations. So again, this is the operations of the town, of the city. And so I just make a couple comments here. So the budget does not include your investment in both the health unit and the Elginnari primary water system. And so those numbers are in the actuals for both 2025 and 2024. And as well, within the expenditures, as you'll remember, we have amortization. And in 2025, the amortization costs for the total City, we're just over 20 million. So when I look at the budgeted expenditures of 175 million and I get to the 207 actual spend, that does not mean the city overspent by that amount. 20 million of that is amortization, as I mentioned, as well as the pickup of the health unit costs, your share of those costs, which is 19.78%, and then your pickup of the water system as well. And so those numbers are in there. The other increase that's both in the government grants and in the social and family services is the increase in the what I call the QUELC. So that's the childcare funding that changed, if you're familiar with that, the total funding formula changed in 2025. And so the cost and the revenue proportionately increased for those changes. So coming down to the excessive revenue over expenditures, again, 7.2 million in 2025 and a negative number, so about a $10 million swing there. And the majority of that is some hookups charges that we had that, again, flow through to the reserve fund, so they're not for operating purposes. Everything below that line relates to either capital or other investments that you have, and so not consistent from year to year. You can see that the city only budgets 3 of those numbers. Obviously, the pickup in the Integris that we own, the shares that we own in Integris, and the pickup in the Elgin area water system are not budgeted for because we simply don't know those amounts. Coming down, so that other revenue and expenditures, again, deals with capital or other investments, not for operations. Coming down to your total surplus at the end of the year, again, of the 945 million. Any questions on that statement at all? Again, I know I'm doing it at a high level, so I'm happy to answer anything specifically.
Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. Under the revenue, when we have government grants, I see we budgeted 68 million and actual 77. Is that because some grants come in later? And we
So
right up front?
the big piece of that is because the health unit is almost 100% funded outside of your municipal shares that fund it by government grants, we pick up our proportionate share of those. So about $7 million of that was the health unit's grants. You're welcome. Anything else? Again, these are operating grants. These would not be the capital grants in that number. The next statement is required because of the health unit investing in a derivative towards their debt. And so that's the next statement. It's just your share of that derivative. So they are hedging their interest rates on their debt. So then we get to the consolidated statement of cash flows. A lot of these numbers I've talked about, but I'm going to just indicate a couple that I've already talked about. Obviously, the first one, the second line down is amortization. That's the 20 million that I've referred to already. And then the acquisition of capital assets plus the increase in capital work in progress. So capital work in progress, it just means that it's projects, capital projects that are in progress at the end of the year, not yet completed, and so not yet amortized. And so you can see there the significant increase there of 132 million, almost 133 million of new assets. And then again, the net repayment of debt. So last year, if you recall, we issued new debt for about we issue debt for $10 million. And so this year we don't have that new debt and we just have the repayment of the debt. Coming down to your cash and cash equivalents at the end of the year. And again, there's a decrease there, but if you remember on the statement or the balance sheet, there was an increase in accounts receivable. So it's just a timing of organizations owing you money and then you're having it in your bank account. And again, the majority of those accounts receivable, if you notice the increase on the balance sheet, have been received subsequent to year end. So we do testing on that to ensure that those receivables are received in a reasonable amount of time. The next statement is your statement of changing net financial assets. So this really drills down into your capital. And again, I've already talked about all these numbers. And as you can see, this flows through to that net financial assets number on the balance sheet that I was discussing already. We then get to the notes to the financial statements. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them for you. Note number 1C is where we talk about what's consolidated in these financial statements. So again, the health unit, which the percentage did not change. We did pick up 1.25% on the Elgin Water System, and then the shares that you have in Integris. So those are all consolidated into these financial statements. The rest of the notes are note 1 is accounting policies. Note number 2, if you didn't understand these financial statements before, we now are having significant changes again in 2027. So that's something to look forward to. Note number 3 is your trust funds, excuse me, which are included in your package as well, and not a big change there. Note number 7 are employee benefits payable. So these are benefits that are present valued into today's dollar of post-retirement benefits that you will be paying out on certain of your employees. Note number 8 is a breakdown of deferred revenue. So your various obligatory reserve funds which have to be spent according to what they were raised for, not at council's discretion. Note number 9, is your long-term debt note, which shows that your decrease of debt there. And then note number 11 is the note that I wanted to discuss the most. So this is the breakdown of your accumulated surplus. You can see there that their only operating surplus is the $51,000 of the DDB. I know there is a part of this motion of a deficit for the city for 2025, which will come from the, which has been reflected here and come from the reserve. And then the reserve fund balances, reserve and reserve fund balances, as well as we broke out the reserve and reserve funds that belong to those consolidated entities, which would be the health unit and the water system, just to show you where the city sits. And again, most of this reserve that's there, reserve funds, most of that is water, wastewater, which is required to be retained separately. And then the reserve increase is, a lot of that is already spoken for funding future projects. Next notes just deal with the Integris investment. And then I'm just going to flip forward to note number 20, which is the note commitment, which I've kind of referred to throughout this presentation on making sure that we keep this in mind as we're going forward, that even though this is a good news story, we still have lots of things ahead of us that we are committed to. And that's my presentation. The last two schedules, the first one is the breakdown of the capital assets by type of asset. And so as you can see there, the infrastructure assets are the majority of your assets, as you would expect. And then the last schedule it's on an angle, but the last schedule is the breakdown of the revenues and expenditures on the FIR functions to break this down. So this is a segue between these financial statements and what we file with the ministry. And then we come to the trust fund financial statements, and I don't have a lot to say on this. The one trust fund that was within the library board has been moved over to their operations to help fund the project that they're currently undergoing. So you can see that that is now gone. So the only trust fund that you will have left going forward is the Valley View, which is really what I call their pocket money. Residents are allowed a certain percentage of their funds to go into an account where they pay for things like hairdressing and things like that. So at the end of the year, there's $22,774 in trust fund monies. And that's my presentation on the statements. I did have a couple of other comments I wanted to make, if that's all right.
Please do.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the treasurer and his staff for all their help getting this done. There's a lot of activity going on in the city, and so I really appreciate all of their help. It's been a really smooth audit, and I appreciate, as I said, that both of them being the treasurer and the deputy treasurer. The second thing I wanted to say, I know your treasurer has reports coming after me on just setting up reserve fund policies, investment policies. So I know you're headed in that direction. And so I just want to reiterate that that's great, as well that Great Plains is going to be archaic in the next 3-4 years. So just keeping that in mind, that we will need a new operating system for the general ledger. And then the last thing was, and I've mentioned this at several of my clients, The province is behind in reconciling yearly childcare reporting and Valley View, Your Home for the Aged reporting. And so we've accrued what we believe to be the right amounts, but the province has the final say. And so those numbers may change and be adjusted in the future years. They are just finishing up 22 right now. And so we're still, we've got a few years to get done yet.
Perfect.
And that's my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Wookey.
Thanks, Your Worship. So thank you very much for that. And in the end, what I'm looking for from you is just in kind of kitchen English, non-accounting English.
I could do that.
You deal with a lot of municipalities, and of course, we're just our own municipality, so we don't see things from the same lens that you see things. And you've mentioned a few of these in your closing remarks. But for our benefit and the benefit of the public, when you look at different municipalities and you look at us, like what would be an example of, say, one thing you think is going particularly well relative to our neighbors, say, or your other clients, I should say, and one thing, say, that you think, you look at us and say, like, this isn't in my presentation, but, if some counselor asks me, I might want to tell them blank. If you're comfortable doing that, I'd love to hear just a really general thoughts on how you see us doing relative to other municipalities that are clients of yours. Thank you.
Sure. Well, you have an unusual problem in the note number 20, which I've talked about. So you've got a lot of upcoming capital expenditures that are going to be made. And so just making sure you keep your eye on that ball would be the thing that I would caution you about. The thing that I think you do well, your treasurer and his staff all understand the importance of internal controls. And so that's in place, and they understand the importance of reporting to council on a regular basis. So I think that's like a big benefit. And just also keeping in mind that you have other capital assets that need to be replenished and maintained outside of what the large project is. And so just making sure that you don't forget about those capital projects that need to be repaired, redone, torn up, taken down. Those all still have to be maintained. And so just keeping your eye on that as well. And in order to do all of that, obviously making sure your reserves are healthy.
Further questions? Christine, thank you. I think in my whole time here, this is as early as we've had the final statements. So.
It is. And I'll just say too, I know there may be some of the councillors sitting around this table that may not be here. Just want to thank especially the mayor for all their support over these last few years. So thank you.
Councillor Reimel, I'm sorry I missed your hand. You have to wave more viciously. Okay, yeah.
That's great. Anyway, thank you. And thank you, Christine. I really really like your presentation, how you go through everything. It's very clear, and I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to ask a question on page 18. It might be more for the treasurer. The Integris, it said that there was the extra 500,000. Did we decide to put that on our internal debt, or what did we decide to do with that?
So the 2025 budget had you not making that reduction in this year because of other commitments that you had on the tax rate.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none. Is there a motion that we, yes. Okay. Councillor Baldwin-Sands, then we'll go to the motion.
I was moving the report, and then I have a question, if I could.
Go ahead with your question.
My question is going back to the original, and it's more of a statement, and it's the 6th bullet that was put forward. And I would like to thank the treasurer for ensuring that for the people at home and for the people around the table, that council approve $100,000 and $217 for community center reserve. And I'm very pleased to see that in this report, and look forward to engagement in the future of this council meeting. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll just read the motion here. So I've got a mover in Councillor Baldwin-Sands, but the motion reads that report TR 2126 relating to the 2025 audited financial statements be received for information, and further that council approve the draft consolidated financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2025, And further, that council approve the draft financial statements for the City of St. Thomas Trust Funds for the year ended December 31st, 2025. And further, that council authorize the mayor and clerk to carry out any administrative acts necessary to complete the audit. And further, that council approve the transfer of $748,675 from the infrastructure reserve to offset the 2025 deficit. And further, that council approve the transfer of $100,217 related to bingo revenues in excess of $300,000 to the community center reserve. And further, that council approve the transfer of $540,484 relating to the 2025 water operating deficit from the water reserve. And further, that council approve the transfer of $1,227,437 from the 2025 wastewater operating surplus to the wastewater reserve. And further, that council approve the transfer of $26,759,245 from the 2025 operating surplus to the industrial servicing reserve for the purpose of contributing towards the Dalewood Water Reclamation Facility. So I've got a move by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship. And just in keeping with our a little bit of out of order here, we're going to move to the under communications, the St. Thomas Minor Baseball Emsley Field Grandstand. A letter has been received by Derek Brooks, St. Thomas Minor Baseball, regarding the Emsley Field Grandstand. I have a motion that the letter received from Derek Brooks, St. Thomas Minor Baseball, regarding the Emsley Field Grandstand be referred to the Parks and Recreation Department for a report. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Reimel.
Questions or comments? Councillor Baldwin Sands?
Thank you. When this report comes back, because of the conversations that I've been having with people involved with this, I want to see some clarity in there that there is no demolition scheduled to take place. That also the loyalty that we've had for Bob Emsley, not just as a baseball player and an umpire in our community, but how he has used that area, especially for encouraging not just youth baseball, but also golf in that area and archery in that area. And that is why we named the grandstand in his honor. And I'm hoping that how this moves forward is that we still respect that and the memory of Bob Emsley and what he did for the youth of this community, and the integrity of that is maintained.
Okay. Councillor Herbert, then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Worship. Welcome to everybody from minor baseball up there. It's great to see so many people. I recognize some of the ones up there. I see Phil Ambrose. I see Neil. Neil used to pitch for the Elgin, pretty good pitcher in his day. He didn't like my umpiring as much, but I knew he was a good pitcher. So thank you, everybody. This is a great report for us. I mean, even myself, when I played there, coached there, umpired there, and I go back to probably one of your first presidents, Ron Baldwin. He was one of our coaches, Ron and Jack Armstrong. And so that's how far back I go with minor baseball. But when this first came to us, I don't think we realized just how important that to keep the grandstand there. And you people are telling us how important it is to keep the grandstand there. So we really have to take a good look at this. I understand there was a meeting a few weeks ago with a group of people, and this is the end of the report. And I don't have a problem with your recommendation of trying to renovate it at a cost. You people are obviously going to work to try to do it. And I don't know what council, if we can do in the end with budgeting or something, or maybe a grant, but whatever. I think it's a great thing. And of course, we talk about Emsley. He was an umpire too, way back before my time. But your worship. But anyway, it's great to see the support. I mean, this is what it's all about. You say council doesn't listen, we're listening. And I'm going to support the second one when it comes to a vote, if it comes to a vote, and we'll try and make it work out. So anyway, congratulations on your support up there. Thank you very much. So, and I just see Neil Phil sitting up there. We were Japan buddies for a week. Anyway, thank you very much. That's my comment. I'm happy for this. So thank you.
Just wanted to note, Councillor Herbert doesn't have very many friends, so when a bunch of them show up, he's quite pleased. Councillor Clark.
Before I make my remarks about the letter, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Herbert on the improvement of his eyes. for,
Yeah, no, it's true.
as an umpire, at least he could recognize Phil and Neil, and I'm not sure he knows which is which from that distance, but his eyes are improving.
You've been talking to Neil, haven't you?
Yeah.
The letter is well received, and it's sparked a lot of interest over the last few weeks of the debate about Emsley Field, and that's great because it's generating community interest, and that's what we want to hear as counselors. And I would just like to ask staff, as they review the letter and report back to us, that they might have a conversation with minor baseball on their feelings about bringing back an intercounty team, or now it's called, the Canadian Baseball League. And while they're starting to canvass or look at interest in fundraising, if we were to refurbish the grandstand, and that was the decision that was made, perhaps through their research, we could find out what kind of interest there would be through individuals, through industry, whether or not there'd be any kind of support for bringing back inter-county baseball. If we're going to have a large grandstand, it'd be nice to see it full of baseball fans. So perhaps that could be incorporated in the report.
Great. Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. I want to echo the comments by my colleagues, but also mention that I appreciate the dialogue that had taken place prior to this, and I certainly support this motion and look forward to it. But what I thought was really positive is that the dialogue wasn't criticism, it was how we can find and help find a solution. And from what I understand, minor baseball has committed money and actually showed up with a check today too. So that's definitely showing commitment towards this, and I think that's what makes St. Thomas such a great community, is that when people are looking to move something forward, is that they come forward with a solution rather than just criticize about it.
Great. Councillor Wookie, did I see your hand too? Yes?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to say that, we get a lot of requests from a lot of groups, right? And there's a lot of people that say they're going to fundraise and provide money. But my experience over a decade I've been around here is that baseball is one of the groups that actually shows up with the money.
Yep.
And so there's some people I might have some doubts with, but I think this group up here, they do it. And that helps us support you, knowing that you guys in the past have come through and did what you said you were going to do. So that's kudos to your group, because that helps us help you. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? John, is there a motion?
Yeah, the motion was just that the letter be referred to Parks and Rec for a report.
Okay. And we have a mover and seconder on it? Okay, great. Further questions, Councillor Baldwin-Stanz?
Mine is just a further comment. Back in, when this was originally discussed back in November and December, I also requested that the Parks and Rec Department look at other ways to bring people to that bandstand.
Right.
Whether it be events, whether it be some of the programming that we do there, but also looking for sponsorships. Now, we've got a great group up there that has come forward, but there are also groups in the community that I've discussed with some of the members of this organization that they would like to see others step up and step forward, as they have done, to look at sponsoring and looking at partnering and looking at creating something amazing once again at that park. And it goes back to what Councillor Herbert was saying, that many years ago there were so many things there, and I'm very proud of what my family has contributed in the past to that, and would like to see it to continue. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Further questions or comments? I've got a new set of lips today, so we're working them in. Seeing none? On the motion, all in favor? Are there any opposed? That is carried unanimously, and we thank you for your help moving us forward on this. John, find out where we are in the agenda and get us back there, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. We'll return to sort of the regular agenda here. So council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. The first committee is strategic direction and development, and the first item is residential land needs 2021 to 2051. I have a motion that report PD 4526 relating to residential land needs 2021 to 2051 be received for information, and further that council accept the report residential land needs to accommodate the 30-year housing forecast 2021 to 2051 by Dillon Consulting Limited. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
All right, questions or comments? Sorry, Counselor Taylor, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question. I know this is a huge major report, took a bit of reading to, to try to understand it. But I'm just curious as to, I had to convert this. Maybe I'll just wait a second.
Okay.
Thank you. I just had to convert this into acres because as an old farmer, that's better than, I understand that more than hectares, but we're talking about 700 gross acres that we might need for future development. I'm just curious in the report whether it actually took into consideration other development that's happening in our neighboring municipalities, or is this on top of? Does St. Thomas need 700 acres by, I forget the year now, 2051? Or is the 700 acres also, let's say the neighboring municipalities pull in 350 acres? Is that on top of the 700 that St. Thomas needs, or is that part of the 700 that we're talking about here? I think we're not an island. I'm just wondering what our other municipalities are doing to help our development. Thank you. Does that make sense?
Michelle?
Sure. So through your worship to Councillor Taylor, so this is just us. The growth analysis forecast did look at the growth of those adjacent municipalities and looked at indicated, that looked at our growth relative to that growth. Those municipalities have undertaken their own growth analysis, determined locations for their growth, but this is what St. Thomas needs for St. Thomas, separate from Central Elgin, separate from Southwold.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. Through the, under the policy number 2.1.3, it states sufficient land shall be made available to accommodate an appropriate range and mix of land uses. So when you say mix of land, are you saying there's a certain percentage has to be set aside for commercial or that type of thing?
So through your worship, that means, a set amount of land needs to be set aside for employment, commercial, residential. The city's undertaken studies to look at how much employment land we needed, and it ended up being about 19 hectares. Commercial land was 24 hectares in addition to the land we already have. So when the province looks at an official plan, when it comes to the province for approval, they look to make sure that we're accommodating all of those growth needs. So they look at the studies we've done and they look to make sure that all that land is being accommodated and that, all the population and employment projections are being accommodated. And what what Dillon has done is they've taken that population and housing needs and looked at realistically how much land do we need to accommodate it in a realistic way. And that's what's in the residential land needs report.
Carry on.
Through the worship. So is there any ever discussion with schools, like a school being built on some of this land that we're taking? Or is that something that we don't do, they would approach us? Thames Valley would approach us?
Yeah, so through your worship, Thames Valley and London Catholic District School Board, they undertake their own analysis about where schools are needed. They're apprised of all of our work. They're very aware of it. And then, as development applications move forward, they're constantly planning and determining where they need various school locations.
Councillor Clark?
Thank you. In their methodology, do they discount certain areas in terms of our potential to provide services to an area? So for example, if there's an area where, we would incur increased costs because we can't get the sewage to run uphill and we've got to put an extra pumping station, or, it's isolated, or I guess even, any of those types of factors, and that's the first one. And the number two is whether or not they rely on probably a lot of your figures as inputs. Was there any disagreements in terms of how certain things got discounted in terms of land being available for use through your methodology as opposed to what they thought? And how did you resolve any of that?
Yeah, so through your worship, under the provincial policy statement and the provincial planning framework, which we have to abide by, the cost and feasibility of development, if it's land within our boundary that could accommodate development that would be appropriate for that type of development, it's something that we would need to look at. We couldn't just discount it because it's challenging to service, because this is supposed to be for a matter of 30 years, right? So it's a much longer term plan and longer term horizon. Ideally, we want to make sure that we have land that's feasible, can feasibly and cost effectively be serviced. And it's something that we'd want to take into account, when making decisions about about servicing and about where and how we grow. But from a provincial planning perspective, the ministry, when they look at a document coming from the city, if we were to say, that we have land, but it's really challenging to service, there's no provincial policies that would make it so that we would just be able to just exclude that land when we don't have any other land available. So, we have worked with this consultant extensively, had a number of discussions about that and about just this provincial policies. And it's not a matter of, there are definitely certain areas that are preferable for growth and we would be looking to grow first. But over that longer term horizon, there's nothing in provincial policy that allows us to exclude land that's suitable for development. If it was natural heritage or something of that nature, we could, but if it's feasible for development, even at a very expensive cost, we're not able to exclude it.
Okay, more? Go.
Just part two is, the 700 acres, I guess, right? Old school. Do you concur with that? Was there any discussion whether it was too high, too low in terms of where you thought we might end up, where the department thought we might end up, or are we pretty well on and accepting the report as it's written?
So through your worship to Councillor Clark, we have had some back and forth with the developer and we're comfortable with the number that they've arrived at. We've run our own calculations and we're comfortable with the figure that it represents what we would need.
Mr. Pompili?
No, I'll just add, through your worship, no, I'll just add to that. Michelle is been accurate at every comment made. This was a long process with the consulting company. We had a lot of back and forth, particularly it does get a little difficult to kind of determine within our own boundaries, like what we can anticipate from intensification. That can be sometimes a bit of a wild card. So there was a lot of back and forth in analyzing that, but otherwise we're in agreement with the recommendation here and the number that we landed on.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. The next item is requested zoning bylaw amendment for 417 Wellington Street and 275 Highview Drive. I have a motion that report PD 4626 related to requested zoning bylaw amendment 417 Wellington Street and 275 Highview Drive be received for information, and further that a public meeting be scheduled for Monday, September 14th, 2026 in accordance with Ontario Regulation 54506 as amended. Moved by Councillor Rymal, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments on the report? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I found it interesting when I read that there was a concern about the airport being involved here, that I'm just say, and obviously you've done the planning and right now it's not going to be an issue, but say what happens in 15, 20 years, the airport decides to grow their runway and bigger planes come in, would that have an effect on this project? Would there be an issue with it at any time?
So through your worship, the city, including the airport, have developed the airport zoning bylaw, which talks about the permitted heights, how they work with the flight path to make sure that we do have that safe travel to and from the airport. Should there be some changes operationally to the airport in the future, they would need to, account for various developments, and that's something that it would happen in any municipality.
Very good. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? I could maybe clarify for those at home and those in the gallery, this is an application pertaining to the Elgin Center. And this council, a number of years ago, gave them approval about 2 apartment buildings on the pad there. And this is the now moving forward of that process. Further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. Next item relates to an application by Shawside Development Limited for temporary removal of part lot control on townhouse dwellings, Block 38 on Plan 11M274. I have a motion that report PD 5226 relating to the application by Shawside Development Limited for temporary removal of part lot control, townhouse dwellings, Block 38, Plan 11M274 be received for information. And further, that the application by Shawside Development Limited relating to the passing of a bylaw to temporarily remove part lot control for townhouse dwellings, Block 38, Plan 11M274 be approved. And further, that council authorize staff to prepare a bylaw pursuant to Section 57 of the Planning Act, which provides that subsection 55 of the Planning Act, part lot control does not apply to Block 38 on Plan 11M274. Moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. Next item relates to applications for draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condominium approval for 96, 98, and 100 Moore Street. I have a motion that report PD 4726 relating to applications for draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condominium approval, 96, 98, and 100 Moore Street be received for information. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Reimel.
Questions or comments on the report? Councillor Reimel.
Just a question as to what does this mean for tenants? You know, that someone that's got into the building and is renting and now they plan to change it to a common condominium status? Just what does that mean?
If I'm not correct, but I'll try first. We have a number of buildings that now are condominium in the sense of how it works with their mortgage and stuff, but they're not individually owned by the tenants or offered for sale to the tenants. So am I correct in this case that that's still the same?
Through Your Worship, yes. In our discussions with the applicant, nothing materially is going to change with this in terms of the approvals that have been given, the structures that have been built or planned to be built. This is strictly a mechanism for assisting the developer with financing the project so that they can move forward with their third building, hopefully soon.
Yeah. Further questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to a community improvement plan project at 118 Center Street grants. I have a motion that report PD 4926 relating to community improvement program grants for 118 Center Street be received for information. And further, council directed a bylaw be prepared to enter into a community improvement program grant agreement with Fresh Start Support Services relating to CIP application 2023-117. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item, Community Improvement Plan Project, Hayho Rentals Limited for 43954 Southdale Line. I have a motion that report PD 50-26 relating to a community improvement project by Hayho Rentals Limited for 43954 Southdale Line be received for information. And further, that council approve a residential grant and loan for application 2026-168 as submitted by Hayho Rentals Limited for 43954 Southdale Line. And further, that council direct a bylaw be prepared to enter into a residential loan agreement with Hayho Rentals Limited relating to a CIP project at 43954 Southdale Line. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Councillor Reimel?
I have a question, and I have no concern with the application or that at all. Just a general question about CIP. And I recognize it's a great program and the different incentives that are there, but is there a concern with the city becoming and lending loans out? You know, we have to track the payments. They have, I think, 7 years in order to pay. What if someone defaults? Does the program, do we need to look at different other types of incentives, or is the loan piece still working?
Mr. Pompili, please go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship. No, that's a great question. The experience that we've had to date with loans has been very effective. There's been a lot of uptake on it. It's been a positive result to help give that last bit of incentive for a proponent to go forward. That being said, we are in the process of looking at our CIP program and looking at its effectiveness and maybe some amendments that we can make to it. And during the course of that review, we'll look at all the incentives that we offer and just ensure that they are functioning appropriately and providing the incentives that they're intending to provide.
Go ahead.
And so that's another, as far as the loan, the looking after the repayment, that's another task for Treasury. Then the Treasury has to look after that. So it's just, they got a lot on their plate, right now. Is that you don't want things to become too onerous. So, yeah, thanks.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your worship, next item relates to a community improvement plan project by 10015523556 Ontario Inc. for 52 Moore Street. I have a motion that report PD 5126 relating to a community improvement project by 10015235556 Ontario Inc. for 52 Moore Street be received for information. And further, that council approve a heritage facade and building improvement grant and loan, heritage design grant, and planning and building fees grant for application 2026-167 as submitted by 10015235556 Ontario Inc. for 52 Moore Street. And further, that council direct a bylaw be prepared to enter into a heritage facade and building improvement loan agreement with 10015235556 Ontario Inc. related to a CIP project at 52 Moore Street. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. The next four items are notices from the Committee of Adjustment. First up, we have a notice relating to 56 to 62 and 64 to 70 Sandy Mount Parkway. Notice of a public meeting to take place by Zoom on August 13th, 2026 at 10 a.m. has been received from the Committee of Adjustment regarding an application for minor variance by Landrise Developments to permit driveway widths and areas of 68.5% for interior and 53.5% for exterior townhouse dwellings, whereas the maximum permitted width and area coverage is 50% for two townhouses, including 8 units at 56 to 62 and 64 to 70 Sandy Mount Parkway. Next notice of a public meeting to take place by Zoom on August 27th, 2026 at 10 a.m. has been received from the Committee of Adjustment regarding an application for minor variance by Jolie Neufeld to permit an additional residential unit on private services, convert an existing detached garage into an additional residential unit, and construction of a new detached garage in the front yard with a height of 4.28 meters and a floor area of 112 square meters, whereas the maximum height shall not exceed 4 meters and maximum floor area shall not exceed 67 square meters. And this is for a property at 40979 Major Line. Remaining notices, notice of a decision has been received from the Committee of Adjustment to permit lot coverage of 37.4%, whereas the maximum is 35%, and to permit a 3-season sunroom 5.76 meters from the rear lot line, whereas the minimum rear yard depth is 7 meters. And this is for a property at 85 Benjamin Parkway. And finally, notice of a decision has been received from the Committee of Adjustment to sever 2 lots for the purposes of facilitating separate mortgage financing for the 3-story and 5-story apartment dwellings at 57 and 65 Walnut Street. Unless there are any items from the members under this committee.
Councillor Raimo.
I just wondered, given the Committee of Adjustment, if we could perhaps have a future report about the Committee of Adjustment. Like my concern is, or not concern, is just to be aware of how much the planning, participates in those, to make sure that we're not setting precedent, because when someone's asking for something, that's more. And then once that's done, then, someone else comes in and says, well, that's a precedent. So maybe just a future report as to what the Committee Adjustment does and how the process works would be helpful.
I know at some point through this term of council, we did look at Committee of Adjustment, even looking at whether a member of council would sit on it too. But I think if that's not too onerous for us to answer Councillor Reimer's questions, can we put that under unfinished business and And you know how the CAO is about making sure all that stuff gets done, so. Joan?
Your worship, just if, to direct a report, if I can just get a motion that staff be directed to prepare that report. I have a mover in Councillor Rymel, if I could just get a seconder. Councillor Clark.
All right, discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried? See how fast we can do that if we.
Thanks, Your worship. Unless there's any further items under this committee, we will move into community engagement and services. First item this evening is the 2026 Elgin St. Thomas Age-Friendly Community Strategy. I have a motion that reports CMO 5626 relating to the 2026 Elgin St. Thomas Age-Friendly Community Strategy be received for information. And further, that council reaffirm the city's commitment to maintaining its designation as an age-friendly community and supporting initiatives that enhance the quality of life, inclusion, and participation of older adults. And further, that the Elgin St. Thomas Age-Friendly Strategy 2026 update be recognized as a resource where appropriate to inform municipal planning, programs, and service delivery. And further, that an annual contribution of $2,000 to support the activities of the Elgin St. Thomas Age-Friendly Committee be included as part of the City Manager's Office operating budget beginning in 2027. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Questions or comments? Wow, a group question and comment. Councillor Baldwin-Sands, you're first.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank very much for this report to Taylor. I like to keep that conversation going that we have with our seniors in our community, not just at Valley View, but also at the library and the senior center. So I was hoping that Taylor could provide a little bit of a verbal update on what's happening and what sort of engagement is happening in our city facilities in regards to keeping seniors engaged in this community. And that's my first question. Thank you.
Great. Hey, Taylor, about 15 or 20 minutes worth of.
Not quite, but thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Baldwin-Sands. Yeah, so as you explained in the report and through the strategy, many city staff members sit on this committee. And through that process, we were able to develop this strategy using those members as expertise and also getting them to bring the information and data collection back to their groups at Valley View, at the library, at social services, based on the community members that they're serving. So there's a lot of engagement that way, and then also just through their individual programs and services that the city participates in and provides to seniors and older adults in the community. So we're very thankful for those different groups to come together, and hopefully with this strategy we'll continue that momentum going forward and be able to come back with some solid updates to council on what that work looks like.
Carry on, Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you. And that goes to, sorry, Councillor Wiki, to steal your thunder about having a report and letting it see and collect dust on a shelf, which this report is obviously not doing. And it is still engaging, and it has a level of engagement with members of our community. So my next question is, what levels are you using to track and see how the progress is going? And is there an attendance model that is doing it, or an increase of engagement on a social media? What sort of templates do you use in order to keep track? Thank you. Then I have a last question.
Yes, thank you. So the initial first step here is to get council's endorsement of the strategy. This also went to Elgin County Council for endorsement, and will go to Southwestern Public Health's board for endorsement as well. So once we have those endorsements in place, the next steps of this process after completing the strategy are to develop those monitoring and performance metrics. So I will say at the current time, I don't have anything currently to bring forward, but that's the next steps for the committee, is to develop those. It's a new strategy for the committee, so that work needs to still take place. But we will be coming back to council, I would expect, on an annual basis to report on what metrics we've evaluated in the past year, and probably set some performance targets that way as well, similar to what we do for our own strategic plan. And especially with the requests for the financials, I think it's important that we do have those reports come forward for not only council, but for the community to see what work is being done through this committee.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My last questions are about Southwest Public Health, their level of engagement, the conduits they use to educate, communicate out. Because one thing that really stood out for me in this report was how caregivers were involved and how caregivers are feeling some of the stress. So it's not just the active healthy seniors, et cetera, but you've also done a focus on caregivers, et cetera, that are companions to a lot of the programming that goes on. So if you can provide some comment on that, and again, thank you for the report.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, it's outlined in the strategy quite well, the stress and the burden on caregivers in the community. So we feel that through the recommendations of this report, if a lot of these things are implemented, it will not only support seniors and older adults in the community, but the people that are caring for them as well, alleviate some of those stress and pressures.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Gibson, then Councillor Clark, then Councillor Taylor. Councillor Rimel's on there too. Okay.
Thank you, Taylor, for the report. I'm on actually three committees that really represent in this age group. And to include the Parks and Recreation for being very inclusive with some activities that have just come out, the walking soccer, I love that idea, and the pickleball and a few other sports that are geared to our seniors. This is wonderful news because this just indicates it's going to be another fabulous place to live. Like, wow, this is the inclusiveness of seniors in the past, I would say 12 years has grown so much, and I'm really pleased at seeing this. You go to the senior center, you go to our parks, you go to our swimming pool, JC's pool, they have aquatics there, exercise program. I mean, we never had that until last year. I think was our first year. And I mean, kudos to our Parks and Recs. This is really a good report. And I just have one question, the 2,000 contribution, what account does that come from? Thank you. And again, thank you, Taylor.
If approved, it will be put in the city manager's ongoing operating budget annually, and that contribution from the county and public health will also be put into that budget line as well.
Okay. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Your Worship. It was interesting to see the number of different community partners that were involved in the study, and I'm just wondering if part of the process will be to identify who's going to take the leadership on the recommendations. And I think it goes back to kind of what Councillor Baldwin Sands was getting at, is to make it a living document and to move it forward, somebody's got to take the bull by the horns and run with it. And so I'm just hoping as you report back to us, you could let us know which of these different groups are going to take the lead and who in that organization is taking the lead, so that when people come to us with direct questions, we'll be able to steer them in the right direction as to who's working on what. And my second comment would just be, it's interesting to see and not surprising that caregivers are highlighted again. So again, the need for the adult day program at Valley View to expand, I think is again being highlighted. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Clark. We will definitely, as part of the performance metrics and the action plan going forward, make sure that there's responsibilities assigned to the recommendations in the report and make sure that those come back to council. And I'm in agreement with the expansion and support of the adult day program, and we're looking forward to bringing that to AMO next week.
Councillor Taylor? You okay? I think you are too. Councillor Rimal?
Just a comment that it's great information. It's great for future planning. And just going forward, I guess with your plan is to have an effective communication strategy. You know, how are you going to communicate all these things? You know, people, there's reduced vision, reduced hearing, and not everybody has a cell phone. So you can't text someone or give them a QR code to get information. So I guess that'll be part of the next step, is to, you know, your communication plan is how you're going to get this information out there.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rimal. And that $2,000 contribution from the three partners will especially help with communications. Part of the strategy and the engagement that we heard from people, like you said, a lot of people aren't online as part of this demographic. So having printed materials is very important to provide information out. So that $6,000 total will definitely contribute to printed materials and promotions, et cetera.
Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. If I might make a suggestion, and I don't know if it would qualify, could we take the 2,000 out of grant? We give grants every year and not have to put it into the budget?
if someone put forward a grant request, that would be a way.
Oh, I would put it forward if I had to. Then I put it forward, then we take it out of grant.
Well, there's some forms that you'll need to get to the treasurer on the grant request, but
Is that possible? Yeah, would that, just a suggestion. I'd make that motion.
not
if I
against
have
your
to make a-
suggestion, just looking for your paperwork and maybe the signature on a check. No. I'm just trying to be age friendly, Jim.
You are.
Further questions or comments? But I see that as another natural thing that could happen. It'd be a place where the grant process could work. No further questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. Next item relates to the 2026 Orange Shirt Day flag raising road closure request. I have a motion that report ES 4526 relating to the 2026 Orange Shirt Day flag raising road closure request be received for information. And further, that council approve the temporary closure of Talbot Street from White Street to St. Catherine Street and Mondamon Street from Talbot Street to Curtis Street from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and Curtis Street from Mondamon Street to St. Catherine Street from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Wednesday, September 30th, 2026 to allow for the Orange Shirt Day flag raising. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the 2026 Railway City Road Race 2026 road closure request. I have a motion that report ES 4626 relating to the Railway City Road Race 2026 road closure request be received for information. And further, that council authorize the road closures as outlined in report ES 4626. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Reimel.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the Accessibility 2026 Open House Free Transit request. I have a motion that report ES 4826 relating to the Accessibility 2026 Open House Free Transit request be received for information. And further, that council waive the transit fare for riders traveling to and from the Accessibility Open House at the Joe Thornton Community Center on Tuesday, September 22nd, 2026. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Unless there are any further items from the members under this committee, we will now move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item this evening in this committee relates to the Transit Master Servicing Plan Public Engagement Summary. We have Dennis Carr here from Dillon Consulting in attendance to present the Transit Master Servicing Plan Round 1 Engagement Summary. And then following the presentation, I have a motion.
Welcome. Did they tell you how to set it all up? Look at that.
Okay, just testing. You can hear me? Perfect.
You're all right.
Okay, thank you everybody for having me here today. Once again, my name is Dennis Carr with Dillon Consulting. I'm the project manager for the transit study that we're conducting for the City of St. Thomas. So thank you for having me here today. So today I'm just here to present an initial part of the study that we're working on, which is the round 1 of engagement that we conducted. And the engagement that we conducted was very comprehensive. It involved posting the study on the city website, providing multiple opportunities for residents and stakeholders to participate. It involved a number of in-person activities, focusing on both community-wide engagement, an online survey with paper versions available, along with a number of focused engagement with key sort of stakeholders within the community. So I'm here today to present some of the outcomes of this engagement and some of the key themes that we heard about, what's working well with the existing transit service and what are the key areas for improvement that we're seeing. So the first part of the engagement that I want to talk about is really the focused engagement. And this talks about a lot of, a number of the key stakeholders that we talk to. And again, you'll hear some very different perspectives on what's working well and what are some of the priorities for transit that individual stakeholders want to see based on their perspective and how they use the system or how their constituents use the system as well. And some of the key overarching themes that we've heard throughout this process that you'll hear me talk about is one, the need for, what's working well is, friendly drivers, some in many cases a reliable service. But one of the things that people want to hear more of and see more of is extended service hours. So, and that was a consistent theme that we heard throughout, improving the reliability of the service. And also extending the service, particularly within the city. So extending the coverage in the areas in which the service provides, particularly with a growing city. So I'll go through some of these, and there's a lot of detail that has been identified in the slide. And again, I'll just identify some of the key themes that we heard from each of the focus areas. So when we spoke to senior care workers through focus groups, a lot of the key themes that we heard was, the affordability of the system was good, but there's some reliability issues, the need to extend hours, and again, a key theme of what we heard, and, making sure bus stops are close to key important destinations, particularly key shopping areas. When we spoke to Fanshawe College, again, you'll see some consistency in some of the themes that we've heard and some new systems as well. Based on the existing classes and the hours of service, the service is typically unable to meet a lot of the demand for student trips, particularly in the later evenings. The on-demand system doesn't always adhere to scheduled pickup times. And there's some discussion about the benefit of a universal transit pass to increase the affordability for students. Again, some of the key themes that we heard. For PowerCo, major employer moving more frequent service, more nighttime service, and connections to London. So that idea of more regional connection, particularly to draw from an employer, draw from a larger array of employees as well as new jobs are coming into the city, were some of the key themes that we heard. We also talked to the supervisors and the drivers that currently operate the service. And again, just reiterated some of what we saw looking through the data, identifying some of the busiest routes in the system with Talbot, being the busiest, some of the challenges of night operations, and the challenges of continuing to operate the on-demand with demand demand growing for the on-demand service. For other major employers that we spoke to, again, transit schedule and frequency, not always aligning with shift times. And when you're operating at hourly service, that can be a challenge to align an hourly service with various different shift times throughout the city. Routes that don't connect to different points of the city, and the need to, ensure some of those connections and improve frequency as well. In terms of connecting agencies, we had a sort of a group of other connecting agencies, including London, Middlesex, Elgin, and again, just providing some feedback into the overall study, the need for improved industrial coverage, the need for weekend service, improved payment options were some of the key themes that we heard from this group as well. In terms of planning and economic development, so speaking with staff, again, that kind of theme of providing more access to new areas, particularly new industrial developments that necessitate transit, expanding some of the transit, including the on-demand, and supporting intensification of transit, or supporting expanded transit along intensification corridors. So where there is new development, making sure we're providing transit there to provide those connections, as well as transit to other regional destinations such as London and Port Stanley. Our conversations with the Accessibility Advisory Committee talked more about the parallel transit service and with wait times getting worse, and what are some of the potential ways we can improve that. Some of the challenges passengers are having in terms of booking trips ahead and getting the ride that they need. And also when using the conventional service, ensuring that there's accessible ways to pay for fare, and also looking at stops as well. In terms of social services, again, some key themes around in providing enhanced travel options to places like London where there's specialized needs that may not be available in St. Thomas, so having those connections available and linking transit to recreational youth programming and the need to align transit schedules with that, which can be difficult when operating hourly service. In terms of high school students, we did make our way into a couple of high schools and had some engagement directly with students where they were able to identify how the existing transit system is working and draw some maps about what they would like the service to look like. So that was sort of a really good connection in with students. Again, interest in regional destinations and establishing direct connections and dedicated loops between high schools, Fanshawe College, and other key retail or other destinations in the city was something that was prioritized. And then, of course, in early councillor workshops that we had with members of council, some of the key themes that we heard was more efficient service, frequent and reliable transportation, particularly recognizing that growth that's happening in the city, including growth in employment, investing more into our service while also thinking about how we increase our overall cost recovery with that investment. So it's about effective investment in our service, improving the reliability reliably servicing shift workers was identified as a key priority, identifying more capacity for our paratransit customers as well, exploring regional partnerships. So as we're exploring these sort of trips outside of St. Thomas and those connections, what do those regional partnerships look like, and ensuring that we have that integration with active transportation as well. So it's not just about the service, but how do people get to and from our bus stops. So when it came to sort of overall community and what we heard through both the pop-ups and the community survey, again, a lot of the key themes came out through the two pop-up sessions that we had, both at the St. Thomas Home Show and a library drop-in session. We heard a lot of strengths about, highlighting about the positive feedback regarding the drivers and the schedules, and them specifically liking routes 3 and 4 in terms of the convenience and the connection to the Walmart. But those opportunities for improvement focused on expansion, both with regional transit, expanded service within St. Thomas as well, including and sort of adjacent areas and to industrial areas as well. Again, key theme that we heard was later evening service, particularly as we start to see more of these sort of shift work opportunities. If we can accommodate a daytime shift, but not an evening shift, that limits the opportunity to use transit and more frequent service, what we're all sort of identified as sort of key areas. And of course, you'll see here a lot of sort of detailed things about the use of smart cards, fares, shelters. These are all things that we take into consideration sort of when developing, when we're going to develop a plan in the future. And again, just to reiterate from the online survey, a lot of similar themes that we heard. We had over 200 responses back from our online survey. Again, the key themes around extending service hours, that was sort of a major theme that we heard as a priority for transit, followed by the reliability of service, increased frequency, and ease of use were sort of the major themes that came out in terms of what's important when looking at overall transit. So again, I'm not going to get into each of these specific points, just recognizing the time that I have, but I hope this provides a good summary of a lot of the key themes that we heard. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Councillor Wookie, then Councillor Herbert.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just one quick one. I saw that on one of the slides, issues of commingling between on-demand and parallel. What was the expression of the concern with that one? If you could just let us know. Thank you.
Through Your Worship, some of the issues that we hear around commingling really have to do with not understanding what commingling is. So Someone that's a parallel transit registrant may be on board a vehicle, and someone who is not a registrant may get on that vehicle at the same time, and there's sort of that misunderstanding of why are they on that same vehicle. So that's sort of the major concern, and sometimes when it adds to, if there's not enough service, it may add to the number of trips that may be denied in the service. But there was a couple of comments on it. It wasn't too significant from what we heard.
Okay. Councilor Herbert?
Through your worship. Well, thank you very much. This has been a priority for council for the last 6 months we know transportation has to be improved in the city. And you had so much information in this. I had to get a printed copy because I wanted to make some notes on it. So, but we know a lot of these things, it's going to be budget time. Do we need more buses? We had an opportunity to meet the Minister of Transportation out on Highway 3. And he talked about transportation joining the city. In fact, Councilor Taylor and Councilor Reimel and Councilor Kaur was the acting mayor that day, and we had a good discussion with them about transportation. And they're very excited about how we're going to improve transportation. But for inside the city, this is good for us. I know someone had talked to me about sometimes routes change and they don't tell anybody. They go to the bus and all of a sudden the bus stop's been moved. So stuff like that we need to improve on. So no, this is good. We know these are all budget items. Do we need 3 more buses? Do we need 10 more operators? This is something we have to sit down, discuss, because implement a lot of these suggestions is difficult. I mean, you want to increase time lengths and 10, 11, which we agree. Like PowerCo is going to want people running buses out there 10, maybe 11, 12 at night, but we need staff to do it. So that's the other side of the coin. Great suggestions, but we have to make it work within our existing budget. So, but anyway, thank you very much. You really did a good job touching bases with almost everybody that I can see. So thank you.
Councilor Kohler?
Thanks, Your Worship. It's great to see how we're progressing through here and the public feedback that is coming back with this too. Now, like just a couple comments too with from what I see, especially with the question that Councilor Wilkie talked about with the on-demand and that being mixed, is that there's a lot of confusion. I think some of it's being portrayed by the provider because they're telling people that their rides are being canceled because of the on-demand. So somebody on paratransit's booked something and then they're being told by the provider that their route was canceled because on-demand came on, which I've been assured by staff that does not happen. So somehow we got to get that communication out that that's not happening, because that's a consistent complaint that I keep getting from this, and it's a misconception. And then I don't know if how much we delve into policy here, because lately I've been getting, especially with the paratransit, is that they're telling me that there's a policy, which I haven't had a chance yet to talk to staff, that they're not allowed to bring their grocery carts on the paratransit bus. They got to take it apart. But meanwhile, it's full of groceries and people are going there. So I found that quite strange. And I'm hoping that actually isn't a policy, because I've been getting a few calls with that, and I just haven't had a chance to talk to staff, but I didn't know if those type of comments are coming through these surveys or not.
Kevin?
Through the mayor to Councilor Kohler, thanks for raising those. I'll take that back about the grocery carts on buses.
Councilor Baldwin-Sands, will you finish, Councilor Kohler? Okay, Councilor Baldwin-Sands and Councilor Reimel.
Thank you. Just a couple of brief questions. On the level of engagement that you introduced to us, were you pleased as a consultant with the number of engagement pieces that you've been able to do? You had several public consultations. You've had the 200 that you mentioned online. So were you pleased with the outcome, with the number of people that we have in our community? Does it give you a good snapshot and what you presented back to us? Thank you.
Through your worship, as with sort of any engagement, the level of engagement we receive is always going to vary depending on what's going on and how people prioritize it. What I am pleased about is the amount of different tactics that we use to engage with the public through the various different focus groups, going right into the high schools, through the 2 in-person sessions, as well as the the in-person survey. So, combined with everything, I think we got a fairly good snapshot of what the community is thinking. Always open to hear more from individuals, but I think we got a decent snapshot of sort of what's going on and what people like and would like to prioritize seeing improved.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those Joan, Councillor Raimel.
Sorry, just, I thought it was wonderful information and you really did capture a lot of detail and so one of my questions would be like, what are your next steps, as for in the plan? And then in the next steps, will you then also give us some ideas, looking at dollars and cents, comparing St. Thomas to other like size cities, as to what, how do we rank, are we funding enough, for the thing? And the other thing is too, I think it's really critical and it's in there too, as far as looking at the payment option for all groups, no matter what age, when you're trying to get on the bus, parallel transits may be booked. And so you're trying to use the regular service and you're older and you're trying to maintain your balance. You don't want to become a false statistics in the age-friendly report. So I think looking at a payment, some kind of, and without having an iris scan for everybody, is there, with all the age of technology, there must be something we could simplify that with. But
Through your worship. So yes, there's a number of next steps. This engagement process provides sort of one level of input of what we're going to look at. We also looked at sort of the existing performance, how it's operating. We're looking at your peers and the level of investment and the level of ridership compares. So we're going to take all of that information and start to develop some strategies and sort of recommended options. Some of those will be around routes. Some of those will be around the extent of service, the frequency, fare payment, fare technology is something that we're going to look at. Are there different technology options that should be prioritized? And again, thinking about, given the level of investment that you have, what should you prioritize to help you achieve your goals around transit? So we're going to sort of take all of that information and present it back to you at a future date.
okay, I didn't turn this off. Sorry, just one last thing. I'm not sure whether it's for you or will we be looking at the current transit station? Is that the best use of that building, to house the buses? Could they be at a different location and repurpose some of that space? Anyway, it's just, I didn't know whether that would be part of the whole transit package.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you for your help tonight. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Mr. Clerk?
Your Worship,
Was there even a motion?
There wasn't a motion yet. I just have to read the motion here. So
Just apply what we just did.
I have a motion that report ES 5026 relating to the Transit Master Servicing Plan Public Engagement Summary be received for information, and further that council acknowledge the key themes and findings outlined in the What We Heard Engagement Summary as representative of the feedback received during phase 1 of the public consultation process, and further that the What We Heard Engagement Summary, together with the comments and direction provided by council during consideration of report ES 5026, be incorporated into the preparation of preliminary service concepts and potential system changes. And further that staff report back to council following the second phase of public consultation, summarizing the development and components of the draft Transit Master Servicing Plan for further consideration. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments further? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. We'll next move on to the school crossing guard location review. I have a motion that report ES 4726 relating to the school crossing guard location review be received for information, and further that council authorize the deployment of a school crossing guard at the intersection of Edward Street and Balaclava Street starting in September 2026. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments on this? Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Thank you. As someone who uses this intersection frequently, I strongly support what is recommended by staff and thank them for this report.
Okay. Further questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the Fingal Line Servicing RFP 2026-021 award. I have a motion that report ES 4926 relating to the Fingal Line Servicing RFP 2026-021 award be received for information, and further that council award RFP 2026-021 to CIMA Plus in the amount of $437,500 excluding HST. Moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Last item under this committee relates to the Yarmouth Yards Earthworks and Servicing Phase 5 tender award. I have a motion that report ID 0626 relating to Yarmouth Yard Earthworks and Servicing Phase 5 tender award be received for information, and further that the tender submitted by Network Sewer and Water Main Limited in the amount of $3,524,334.30 excluding HST be accepted. Moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Unless there are any further items from the members under this committee.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. The Harvest Court parking strategy has been implemented, and I think 98% of the people are extremely happy. I had the opportunity to talk to a couple people that aren't upset. It's just they were hoping that we would go a little bit further, and they have addressed this through the customer service program, and they followed through the process, and it's been closed off, and it's just kind of been left at where it's gonna stay because of council's direction for the report. So what I'm hoping for, and I'd like to actually move a motion, hopefully there's a seconder, that we include no parking signs in front of 19 and 21 Harvest Court. So when we've come around the cul-de-sac there's those two houses there, and we don't have signs, but the way their frontage is, if you try to park in those areas, they're too small and they extend over the driveways. Like, they're illegal parking spots anyways. You would be ticketed based on our bylaw because you have to have 3 feet on either side. So, but what's happening, because we've gone no parking on that side, people are now just parking there, and it's actually blocking them into their laneways. I know they've talked to some other councilors too, but I've had the opportunity to go over there and actually park there and seen what's happened. And my fear is if we don't do something with this, because he was actually trapped inside his laneway trying to get to his afternoon shift and couldn't get out because somebody was parked there. But once school starts, if people do that and they're going to be forced to that side, I think these people at 19 and 21 will be hampered with that the whole school season. So I was hoping that we could have a motion or accepted motion that we install 2 signs, one in front of 19 and 21 Harvest Court. And I'm sure that can be taken care of in the operating budget, but thank you.
Are you looking for a seconder? Councillor Gibson, good. Now we can have discussion.
Well, I'm thinking Kevin's going to take care of it by the look on his.
I was thinking, I saw him writing feverishly, but so, Kevin, want to input?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Kohler. That's something I can easily take away and have installed.
Okay, then we do not need to vote on the motion then. Staff has already picked it up. Clerk?
Your Worship, we could still have a motion, just that staff be directed to install no parking signs in front of 19 and 21 Harvest Court. I have moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Great, just as easy to say. No further comment. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried? Great. All right. Councillor Clark, did you have more?
Yes. I had a couple calls with regard to Shaw Side and when the roads are going to be assumed by the city. And I was just wondering, I know we're going through that process with a number of subdivisions, and just wondering if we could get an update on the timelines for the Shaw Valley one.
Kevin, you got some help, or you want to get back to us on this one, or?
No, I can give you an update through the mayor to Councillor Clark. Our development team has been working on going back in history, going back in time to find out and making sure that we are crossing our Ts and dotting our Is on all of our subdivisions, and discovered that we need to go a little bit further back than 2017 in order to make sure that we assume those properly. So it's taking us a little bit longer. We're hoping to bring a report into council in September. We were targeting this council meeting to do that, but it's just taking us a little bit more time. So that's our status update.
Okay. All right. Anything else under this topic? Or this committee, I mean? Seeing none?
Thanks, Your Worship. We'll move into corporate governance and administration. Having already dealt with the financial statements, we'll move on to Yarmouth Yards financial plan. I have a motion that report TR 2026 relating to the Yarmouth Yards financial plan be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Reimel.
Questions or comments? Or Mr. Treasurer, would you like to go first?
Certainly, I can introduce the report at least. So we've been speaking about the Yarmouth Yards development for some time, but mostly in generalities, right? We all understand that we have this large upfront investment and it's going to pay off in a significant way in the future, but how do we manage the interim? So the purpose of this report is to get a bit more specific in that regard and outline a kind of like a budgeting context for how we're going to handle this moving forward. And so the report goes through a number of items. It specifies what our unfunded portion of Yarmouth Yards is. That'd be $167 million. But also highlights the opportunity that we have received over $800 million in grants and subsidies and private agreements. It then tests, can the city afford that $167 million if we were to debt finance it? And so the report goes through a number of assumptions that leads us to the opinion that yes, we can, without kind of doing things like deferring capital or increasing taxes, any of those extraneous measures that would apply pressure to the tax base. Then we took that set of assumptions and we kind of tested it with some different adverse scenarios to see, to just stress test the model to see if things don't go quite as we intend them to. Do we then have to increase taxes or defer capital or take extraneous measures? And generally the answer is no, but we do specify in the report that this is all based on a set of assumptions that could change as we move forward. It also notes that if several adverse conditions stack upon one another, then the city could be in some trouble in that situation. So it does recommend a set of risk management initiatives that we can take, at most being no cost at all to the taxpayer. And those are recommended through this report for council's consideration in future budgets.
Great. Having the report attached and that summary to begin with, are there questions or comments of the treasurer? Councillor Wookie.
Thanks, Your Worship. Comprehensive reports like this help lower our blood pressure, because I think for both us currently and the next council and the next council after that, this provides us with a really good roadmap of what is both possible, reasonable, and prudent to do. And that's what we need. That's what we as elected officials need, is we need a roadmap like this. So for me, when I take a look at some of the charts, thank you, graphs, councilors love graphs, and see that the debt repayment is reasonable, and seeing that the available cash flow, what the kind of road ahead looks like for that, it provides us with a framework where we can frame our own expectations about what's going to happen over the next 8 years. This is one of those ones where it's sort of like a few of these graphs I'd like to have up in the counselor's lounge, like really large, and framed, and make sure we can see those every week when we walk in, kind of thing, because documents like this are great guiding documents for us, Adam. So thank you. When I read this, you just feel like you have a better grip on what's going on and what's ahead. And so there's no question, just a appreciation of how this guides us going forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Reimel, then Councillor Kohler.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, but I appreciate this very much. response to Councillor Wookie, I think we should have one of Justin's charts, on the wall, with all the timelines and the great big thing, because to me, this project is, I would think it's the city's #1 project. It's the one we need to really keep focused. And I am concerned that we don't have currently we don't have a reserve fund set up. I know we're trying to do the development charge project, and that will come, but we could set aside right today, I don't know how to call it, DWRF anyway, reserve fund, where we start to, we have to be mindful that we have to sock money away in there for this project. We can't wait till all of a sudden it's done and then say, oh, we didn't save any money. So I'd like to see some visible markers that we've got something set aside. And with all the things that the treasurer has written about the mitigation things, like he's recommending these things. Well, how do we make them actually happen? How can we make all these, yes, okay, all the things that he's suggested, we should say, yes, we want them all to happen. And including the reserve fund, something today. I'm concerned about the ARL, the funding, like we're planning, I think it's 9.7 million, that we're going to be able to incur every year. But just for instance, like we just recently increased our reserve last meeting, 7.4 million, because we had depleted our reserves. Like what would a 7.4 million hit like that due to that ARL? And is that effective like for 1 year, or does that effect go on, for subsequent years?
Mr. Treasurer?
Thank you. Yeah. It would affect us as long as the debt is active. So our ARL is based on our annual repayments. So once our annual repayments against a debenture stops, we recapture some of our debt capacity. So you're right. The debenture we just decided to issue will take up additional debt capacity space. That being said, you can see from the graph that there is ample space available. We just have to be a little cautious going forward that we exercise discretion when we're going to issue debt. And we also have to be aware of the fact that our debt capacity can also be proportionately used by entities that we proportionally own, such as the Water Board.
So I think we just have to be really, really careful and really mindful when people, and 3 years, some point it seems like a long time, but everyone wants a project, but we have to be very careful that we have to start saving up and having some funding. We don't want to get in big trouble with this, because we're trying to look at operational, we've got staff and we're trying to grow the city, and everybody wants their streets plowed early and their garbage picked up. So we've got so many pressures on there, but this fund, this project is critical. It's critical to the growth, but it's an expensive project. How did we make out with the grant request that we did back in April? Was it 172 million? Were we successful in that?
Well, sorry, City Manager, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Reimerl. We have not heard the results of that grant funding. However, we have been in contact with the federal ministry that's administering that grant, and we are continued to be up for consideration of receiving that funding. So we're quite hopeful. However, we know there is a lot of competing capital infrastructure projects across the country, and we are just one of many applications.
Okay, so just back, I'd like to, suggest that we set up some kind of reserve fund, like at least get some kind of marker on the wall and say, okay, we're going to start putting money in this pot. So at least it's visible.
And I would expect that the budget season coming up upon you is a great time to really analyze all of that. Mr. Treasurer, can we do it now, or is it a part of our fiscal responsibility over the next little while?
We'll have to establish a reporting framework. That is number 7 in those risk mitigation items I recommend in the report, is to establish an ongoing financial monitoring framework. We'll have to decide exactly how that looks. I'm certainly open to council's opinion or preferences on what that may look like. We can include it as part of our quarterly budget monitoring process, or we could do a standalone item. I think we'll take that item back as staff and kind of develop it and bring it back for council's consideration.
Okay, great. And I agree. Mr. Treasurer, the addition of our quarterly reports to council now have given us a far greater piece of knowledge on some of these larger projects we have going on too. I'm going to Councillor Kohler, then Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. I told the treasurer this already, that in my short time on council, this is probably one of the most important reports that I've ever dealt with. And I think when we look at this and it shows the planning, I think it proves to the people that we can focus on industrial and commercial growth without forgetting the long-term residents here. And I think this report should give them some comfort in that. And I just want to point out the one paragraph that's in here that should reassure everybody. It's based on the assumptions adopted by staff, the forecast indicates that the city is not expected to exceed cash flows constraints that would require interim capital project deferrals or increases to property taxes or utility rates to meet annual debt servicing obligations. Rather, the annual projects accumulated surplus in cash flows in the forecasted period. So I think we all know that the next 4 years are going to be tough in the fact that we're not going to have that money to throw around, but this should give everybody the comfort that if we continue to go through the financial plan and we make sure that we're prudent, we don't increase spending or on unbudgeted items, that we can make it through here and get to the point where we start realizing that tax repayment from the projects that we're investing in. So I really appreciate this report, how it's laid out. It's nice and simple, but it should give everybody comfort that if we maintain what we're doing and we consistently continue to go through and monitor what we're doing, that we can get through it without impacting the long-term residents.
Councillor Clark?
Thank you. The report mentions that part of the funding will be land sales from the Yarmouth Yards complex. I'm just wondering whether the 167 million of debt has taken all the sales of that land into the calculations, or what percentage of the lands, we've sold some, we haven't sold the others. Just wondering whether the 167 could be less if more land is sold, or how you've used that future land sales in this report.
Yeah, so part of the 800 million that is funded for the project includes some land sales that have already transpired. If we were to generate additional land sales, those could be applied similarly against that unfunded portion, which is slated to be debt funded right now. That would be an option council has. You could either apply it against the project to avoid debt, or you can hold it for some of those high risk years to just make sure that we're going to be able to make those debenture payments without increasing taxes or utility rates. If you wanted a little bit of extra assurance, that's something that we could discuss as a council as those land sales transpire in the future.
Please go ahead.
So just for clarification then, the land sales, if we decide to take the land sales and apply it against the short-term debt, the 167 is not taking into account future land sales. Yeah.
That's correct. We value the land that's unsold out at Yarmouth Yards somewhere around $250 million. So it's possible that if we had a bunch of land sales, you could apply it against the unfunded portion of the project to significantly avoid debt. Right. But it'd be reliant on those land sales happening.
Sure, but the good news is we have the land; it's not going away, and so it's not as scary as the 167, may appear to be.
Councillor Taylor, then Councillor Wookey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had a similar question in regards to the annual repayment limit that we've set at 80%. I'm just maybe thinking that and that's a maximum, is there a way to limit that? Because when the world pandemic hit in 2020, no one in their financial plans or in their strategic plans had any idea that a world pandemic is something we should think about. Believe me, I don't want to even see something like that happen, but let's just say that there's some sort of a world catastrophe that happens. I'm just wondering if Treasury has reviewed the fact, is that a maximum, or should we be looking at other numbers like 70% or 60% as being our annual repayment limit rather than setting, yeah, that's our max, but is that where we really want to go, or should we be looking just in case, because the sky is falling? I'm never going to say that, but I don't want to be in that position when it does, if it ever does. But anyway, just wondering about that 80%. Is that really the number we want to set today? Thank you.
Mr. Treasurer?
So it is best practice for council to adopt what's called a debt management policy where you define that level. I would suggest you don't want to use your whole ARL. If you've done that, you've done something wrong. I've suggested in the report that we use up to 80% of it to leave some room for the unknown as suggested by the councillor, but it is completely within council's ability and right to determine where that line may be.
So we have Councillor Taylor down for less. Yes. Councillor Wookie?
Thank you. This is a question for the city manager and the communications team. And the challenge here is going to be, as Councillor Kohler said, this is one of the most important reports we've had in many, many years. And how does this get condensed, simplified, so it can be digestible for the public? Because I want to be able to, when we talk to the public, to say, hey, on Speak Up St. Thomas, there's an article on this. You can read it. It's right there. It'll take you 5 minutes and you'll have an idea of what we're going through and what we're talking about. So to the city manager, I think you've got a challenge, because this is not going to be a real simple one, but it's a very important one to be able to point out to people what's going on. I guess, how do you see this getting out to the public and on what avenue? Because it's not, having it as a social media post doesn't do it justice, but that might be the start of it. So just a question for you. Thanks.
Go ahead, City Manager.
Thank you, Councillor Wookie, and through the mayor to council. Our communications and public relations coordinator has been working on a robust communications strategy. The first step in this process was this council report. So making sure we get that out. The mayor did some media work today with CTV to try to kind of elaborate more on these concepts. A lot of the work involves utilizing our Beehive, so kind of breaking down various aspects of this into kind of nice consumable videos. So we appreciate the partnership of the EDC in putting that out. It's also doing some social media work, using our new engagement platform, and making sure that we communicate this in all of the different ways. So there is a strategy and a plan, but it works kind of on, because it is so complex and a lot of people don't want to read a 12-page council report, it's making sure that it's consumable to the average citizen. So there is a plan and it's rolling out this fall.
Bill at 11. Yeah. Councillor Herbert, no, did I have any? No, Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the report, Adam. I mean, this really helps me understand what's going on. And yet I was a little bit confused when I was reading through it, where under your consolidated statements of operations, accumulated surplus income statement, you say that we reflect an operating deficit of 748,000. And then in the next statement, you say, however, we have a surplus of 134,000. And then you list a bunch of budget line items. Are those, if you total those budget line items, would that make the difference between we go from a deficit to a surplus? That's how we get to the surplus, by adding up what you're suggesting there, like industrial development activities and non-cash accounting adjustments?
Yeah, so that question is in reference to the audited financial statements. Yes, we with respect to that, we incurred a budget deficit that we were required to draw from a tax-funded reserve to resolve. But on the financial statements, we had a large surplus. That was in relation to Yarmouth Yards. As I just mentioned, we've secured over $800 million in grants and private sector agreements. And so that's why the financial statements both show a budget deficit and a very large surplus for the city simultaneously.
So they offset each other, is that what you're saying?
They're just used for different purposes. The money for Yarmouth Yards is for Yarmouth Yards. It's not to build a road or pay staff. It's just very specific purpose. The money that is used for general city operations, we did have a modest deficit as reported in Q4.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, comments? Mr. Treasurer, again, I'll say it again. The information flowing from your department has been exceptional on big things like this and even what we need to do next. And there's a lot of large amount of gap between last message to this message, which makes it a little easier for us to, as Councillor Wookie says, answer the questions of the taxpayers of the city and what is it you're doing. I think this was a excellent document. It got out there with the agenda this week and people read it. People had great questions on it and there'll be more following up. And as you say, the communication plan on it is to be as straightforward as we can against the information that we now know to be and the risks that are in the report. So thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. Next item relates to community grant requests intake 4. I have a motion that report TR 2226 relating to community grant requests intake 4 be received for information, and further that council decline all applications under the 2026 community grants program intake 4. Moved by Councillor Reimel. Seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your Worship, the next item relates to the 2026 municipal election accessibility plan. I have a motion that report CC 1526 relating to the 2026 municipal election accessibility plan be received for information, and further that council adopt the 2026 municipal election accessibility plan for the 2026 municipal election. Moved by Councillor Gibson, second by Councillor Reimel.
Questions or comments on the election accessibility plan? Mr. Deputy Clerk, do you want to share any of the information on this, or you?
Worship, similar plans to previous years, again, with council supporting the online and telephone voting. Anyone can vote from anywhere. All of the technology is available for assistive screen readers. Lots of accessible technologies can utilize the online voting. And we're just finalizing voter assistance centers right now within that 2-week window that you can vote. And they'll all be fully accessible as well.
Super. Councillor Herbert?
Question to John through the mayor. Are you having more than 2 sites, or because people have asked me, I know we had, I think, 2 last year, library, Moy Arena, but they're asking me other sites.
Thanks, and through to council. So right now, we will likely be 2 dates at the Elgin Center, the Senior Center, and the library. So 3 different locations across 4 dates. We're looking to include a Saturday, evening hours, and daytime as well.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Taylor?
I'm not sure if this is the right, thank you, Your Worship, spot to say thank you to city staff. Have been out at the Horton Market a number of weekends, a number of Saturdays promoting get out and vote. So congratulations to that work that they've done. Thank you.
Have you all checked that you're on that you're eligible to vote? Because it's been great time fighting with it one night, but I got it, so it works. I can vote this week or this year. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. Next item relates to the council staff relations policy. I have a motion that report CC 1326 relating to the council staff relations policy be received for information, and further that council adopt council staff relations policy GA04 as presented, and further that a bylaw authorizing the adoption of council staff relations policy GA04 be presented to council for enactment. Moved by Councillor Gibson, or sorry, Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Last item under this committee relates to the St. Thomas Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee Terms of Reference. I have a motion that report CC 1426 relating to the St. Thomas Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee Terms of Reference be received for information, and further that council authorize the preparation of a bylaw establishing the St. Thomas Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee in accordance with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act 2005 as amended. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Rymal.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your worship, unless there are any further items from this committee from the members, council will now reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole as recorded in the minutes of this date be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Wookie.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into reports of committees. A couple items this evening. We have Report Chief 2026-24 of the Police Chief to the St. Thomas Police Services Board relating to the Crime Severity Index values for 2025. This is included for the members' information.
Councillor Wookie.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd just like to ask the Chief, because he's here, just to talk a little bit about the highlights of that and what it means for the citizens of St. Thomas. Thank you.
Chief, great to have you here tonight.
Thank you for having me. Well, good evening, Council. I'm pleased to be here this evening to report to you and provide informational purposes of the 2025 Crime Severity Index results, which demonstrates that St. Thomas remains a safe city and that the strategic investments by the city and the Police Services Board are producing measurable results. As you all know, I've attended here the last 3 years as the Chief of Police to report on the Crime Severity Index. Crime severity is separated into three primary measures: overall crime severity index, nonviolent crime severity index, and the violent crime severity index. We saw reductions in all three measures. This is a significant notation and provides a clear evidence that the strategic investments made are producing tangible and measurable public safety outcomes. Of note, overall crime severity decreased 6.1% in 2025 and by 10% since 23, while violent crime severity fell by a significant 17% over the past year and is averaging a 6% reduction since 2023. Notably, we saw homicides decline 50%, robberies decline 33%, and illicit drug offenses decline 6%. The nonviolent CSI held steady at a reduction of 0.2%, representing 12% average reduction since 2023. I would be remiss not to mention the very promising results from our downtown. Social and health-related disorder issues in the downtown core have been a primary focus of our police service, as you know. Since 2021, unwanted persons in the downtown core have decreased by 75%. Complaints involving drug use behavior or activities in the downtown core have decreased by 84% since 2021. These are major reductions, and I commend the Police Services Board and the City Council for providing the financial resourcing to provide a safe city. This council and the Police Services Board made deliberate investments over the last couple of years to address emerging risks and strengthen organizational police capacity. These investments were wise and necessary, and they are working. What they have done is increase frontline capacity. They've targeted intelligence-led enforcement. They provided a community resource team, which is now comprised of 10 special constables, strengthened street crime and our property crime units. It has provided the creation of a crime analysis unit. It has provided a second police services dog team. It enhanced forensic identification and digital forensics capacity. And it has provided the strategic deployment of uniform resources where we need them most, and the creation of a deployment and deployment of a critical incident response team. While these results are encouraging, I do want to note, and it's important for me to note, that there are rising incident volumes this year. We are at 1,000 incidents over where we were last time this year. So we're looking at what is causing the community to need the police 1,000 more times in 26 more than 25. Is that what growth looks like? Is this our new normal? And, you know, we can manage these incident volumes. It's just the complexities we have to look at. And by complexities, I'm referring to violent and nonviolent recidivism, intimate partner violence, which notably rose 30% in 2025, community disorder and calls for service, high risk and prolific offending, investigative and frontline workload, population and municipal growth, and member and organizational resilience and wellness. So those are the areas we're looking at. I do want to take this opportunity to thank Council for your continued prioritization of public safety and for the men and women of the police service that serve this community every day. The results and the work we're doing together are working. So subject to any questions, I yield back.
Okay. Councilor Herbert on the crime severity.
Thank you, Worship. I don't really have a question for you. It's just going to be a couple of good positive comments. I know when I ran for election my first term, one of the things I had highlighted was a satellite office downtown for the police department. Well, look where we are now. Your special constables, I'm going to brag about them. They know everybody on that street. They take care of everybody. And it gives your officers an opportunity to do police work around the city and not be dragged down Talbot Street. So kudos to you on that. Your key findings. We want to promote St. Thomas a safe place to live. Read this. You know, I mean, it's never going to be perfect, but we're in the downward stuff, and that's great. So you have a great staff and team, and so I always get excited. I always follow these reports along pretty good. So you did it. If you did the report perfect, you did a great job in putting it all together, especially the diagrams and stuff. Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
If I did the report, Councilor Herbert, I did the report.
Yeah. Further questions or comments, Councilor Reimel?
It's just, I appreciate the report as well. And it's one thing, you know, when you get the funding, it's how to strategically manage it and to be flexible and to constantly maneuver, you know, strategies. And, you know, you're looking at the national rate is 75. London's up to 65.95. So, you know, you're doing a tremendous job, a very progressive department, and we're very fortunate in the city.
Yeah. Councilor Clark?
Just wondering about the domestic violence and whether or not that is triggered by anything that you're seeing locally, or is it a nationwide trend after the pandemic, or whether it's a reflection of the economy, and just wondering why in 1 year we're seeing such a change.
Through your worship to Councilor Clark. It is, these statistics for intimate partner violence are up nationally. So we're looking at ways that we can address that. We have received provincial funding to come up with proactive, not just the reactive pieces, but the proactive ways to identify problematic family disputes, gender-based violence before it occurs. If we have an argument, we now send a social worker who's embedded in our police service to the residents, or if we make an arrest, we have the social worker meet with the accused and the victim so that we can stop the cycle of violence and knock down this 30% rise. But we are still analyzing why it's happening, but it is happening nationally. There will be some relation to the second order effects to the pandemic, the government's responses, all of our responses to the pandemic in terms of resources. Are they not available any longer? Have we closed doors to some important social resources that once were there to prevent this? We're looking at all of that, but the 30% is a real number, and it's concerning.
Councilor Wickie?
Thanks, Your Worship. I have a couple of questions. One comment about what you just talked about, intimate partner violence. I'm hoping that part of it is that we as a society are getting more comfortable talking about it. So perhaps it is that more is being reported, you know, that might not have been reported. And so I'm not trying to phrase this as a positive thing, but if people are more comfortable talking about it and reporting it, you know, we are helping to deal with the problem. Two questions, and they're both I don't want to get your blood pressure up, Chief, but I know these are both hot topics because I've heard you talk about them many times. In terms of arson and how it fits into the crime severity index, how does the whole topic of arson fit into this, into the graphics here? That's my first one. Thank you.
Councillor Wookie, the arson would fit into the nonviolent crime severity measure. We've spoken about this in the past. I would submit to you that arson, they've used fire as the weapon, and it can have devastating effects. We all know the results from recently, and we put a statement out on the sentencing of the individual that dropped the historical building in our downtown core, and that was a significant sentence. Keep in mind that sentence issued in 2025 will have a direct impact on 26's crime severity for the nonviolent, because crime severity is weighted on the sentences that are issued in the year that they occur. So we will see the arson sentence of 5 years for that individual reflected in 26's crime severity. So again, and I didn't get into this, but we can't take the crime severity results alone. They have to be looked at on a whole host of things that are affecting our community, read public safety. But these results, coupled with other quantitative results, are showing that we have a very safe city, and it can be attributed to the resources, the financial resources that this council has provided me.
Next question.
The second one, reoffenders. Now, I'm wondering if there's been an analysis done, not asking for it to be done, but I'm going to guess your analytics people can take a look at it and say, if, X percent of these serious offenders who are let out on recognizance or whatever conditions were not let out, and we can take a look at the crimes they committed when they were let out, what would the crime severity index kind of look like for us? Just some general comments. I'm not asking for that to be done if it's not been done, but I'm guessing that it would be a very interesting set of statistics if you took a look at who's doing the offending, because we have a crime severity index, but it'd be interesting in taking a look at, are there 8 individuals who are responsible for 30% of this index, things like that. So just a few comments from that would be great. I'd be grateful for that.
Okay. Chief?
Certainly. Recidivism is a real thing. We work on the premise that repeated mistakes are choices. And so the federal government, as you know, just released Bill C-14, which is an act to amend bail. Specifically, I'll speak to the reverse onus and repeat violent offending, failure to appear, and just surety. It's strengthening who becomes a surety and who doesn't. Councillor Wookie, recidivism has been a big issue for us in recent years. Failed to comply offenses are committed by a disproportionate few, and so we're working to reduce those numbers considerably. In answer to your point about the reporting up, read the gender-based intimate partner violence, you are correct. We have been advocating and campaigning publicly about reporting and trying to reach victims and survivors of IPV and gender-based violence. And I think that also has a result, Councillor Clark, as well, on why our numbers nationally have been up. There's been an enhanced focus provincially and nationally on trying to end that. It's become an epidemic, and we're trying to end that. So the increased resources put towards that specific crime complexity, it results in some increased numbers in those areas. So,
further questions or comments on the crime severity index? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Chief, you have a second report.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, another report under reports of committee, report chief 2026-28 of the police chief to the St. Thomas Police Services Board. This one relates to tactical readiness vehicles. As there's a financial component, I do have a motion ready that council support the proposed acquisition of 2 tactical response vehicles at a cost of $159,900 plus applicable taxes and necessary transfer costs funded from available police services development charge reserves. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Reimel?
Just the Development Charge Reserve Fund report is a very handy report there to have. So anyway, but I know that you do, you do contain any vehicle costs in your operating, which I don't know how you do it. So this is seems to be very reasonable amount, and we've got you have the reserve fund, and we can't use it for anything else. Like we can't take it and give it to planning. So it's there to be used, and this seems like a good use of it.
Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. Well, you know, Mark, this was when my first term aboard. This was a discussion at that time with you and Chris, and Your Worship was on the board about getting this, and it just wasn't in the cards at that time. Your plan was, I believe, was to contact London if you needed that type of service. But now, so this is great here. I mean, I'm happily supporting it, and I don't know what when you finally get them, if you're going to be able to offer your service maybe to Aylmer. I don't know how that works, if that's a possibility. But my question is not capital. I mean, your reserve fund. Your Worship will remember we had a big debate about the reserve fund for the Police Services Board, and we ended up letting you keep your money in the Police Services Board. So my question is operational. Do you have to hire more officers now to man these? Do you have to train officers for this special? Do you have to buy special equipment, bigger gun? I don't know, I say bigger guns, but is that something that would come out of a reserve fund, or is that not necessary? You just have you just take 2 officers on a shift and put them in the tank and away you go? Is that the way it works? I'm just not sure. I'm just wondering if there's any more operational costs that are going to pop up here. So that's my question. Thank you.
Chief?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Herbert. The police service has been transitioning from a containment team that we developed 2 years ago to a tactical team in 2027. What these vehicles will do is they will provide further readiness. We're not quite there, but we are getting ourselves there for the arrival of PowerCo, which is a requirement. In terms of the upscaled qualifications of this team, they are 12 individuals that are highly trained to deal with very serious, violent crisis matters. Frontline has some of this training, but not near what these individual officers have. Yes, it is. These vehicles are equipped with vaults for rifles, for all of those critical incidents that we are legislated to be ready for and to provide. So,
Councillor Clark?
Thanks, Your Worship. Typically, police budget items don't come to us, and so I just want a clarification on the Development Charge Reserve Fund is our fund, right? It's not the part of the police budget, as you described, Councillor Herbert. So this is an ask outside of the budget that we've established that we're asking to be approved tonight. Just for clarification.
I think I'd like our treasurer to give us just a little further explanation on where this came from.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. That was an accurate description. We see this as a ask extraneous to the budget process between the Police Services Board and the city. The use of the development charge, police development charge reserve fund is at the city's discretion. It's not an area that the police board could forcibly transfer out of. But that being said, we did encourage the chief to come to the meeting tonight. We're supportive of their request. And ultimately, these GC funds were set aside for the purposes of what is being proposed through his report. So we're supportive of him coming here tonight and approval of the request.
Okay.
Right. I just, we had a large increase in our budget this year driven by the fact that the province didn't give the police the grants that they typically get. And now we're transitioning from to a tactical unit. Is all this on the taxpayers' back, or does the province, when you move from a containment unit to a tactical unit, is there new provincial dollars that we didn't get recently that could be applied to this situation?
Chief?
Councillor Clark, we're always looking for ways to offset expenses through provincial revenues. I don't know of any stream that would offset this. This fits into the Community Safety and Policing Act. It's a regulation that if the city needs a tactical unit, they are financially responsible to operationally fund that. And so, again, this is as a result of growth, where we're going with crime severity, with the arrival of PowerCo. There's a number of reasons why we need to move ourselves to a tactical response team that is working. We reported out in the annual report in June. We have involved this team 94% more than we did in 2025. We didn't have a team completely formed in 2024, so it's relatively a new team. There are operational expenses that we've been chipping away at, trying to get there over about a 3-year period for the arrival of PowerCo next September. And this team is required as a level 2 legislated team, and it does fit the growth. It is a requirement of growth. Hope that answers your question.
Okay. Further questions? Thanks, Chief. There was a motion on the floor, so I'll say all in favor. Any opposed? Carried. Chief, thank you for coming and sharing with us on both of those topics tonight.
Thanks, Your Worship. We'll now move into communications. First item relates to the Fetal Alcohol Spectrum's Disorder Awareness. It's a September 9th, 2026 proclamation, jumbo lighting and bell ringing. I have a motion that the Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim September 9th, 2026 as Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Day in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the jumbo monument be lit in red from September 5th to 9th, 2026, and further that the bells at City Hall be rung 9 times at 9:09 a.m. on September 9th, 2026. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, October 17th, 2026 proclamation and flag raising. I have a motion that the Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim October 17th, 2026 as International Day for the Eradication of Poverty in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the Coalition to End Poverty flag be flown on October 17th, 2026. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to Ontario Public Library Week, October 18th to 24th, 2026, proclamation and flag raising. I have a motion that the Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim October 18th to 24th, 2026 as Ontario Public Library Week in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the green Libraries for Life flag be flown for the week. Moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the Foster Family Appreciation Week, October 19th to 25th, 2026, proclamation and flag raising. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim October 19th to 25th, 2026 as Foster Family Appreciation Week in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the Family and Children's Services flag be flown for the week. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to a request to permit the keeping of backyard hens. A letter has been received from Daniel Zuniga, 26 Welch Court, regarding the keeping of backyard hens in the city. As noted on Council's agenda, a motion was lost to permit the keeping of backyard hens in 2025. Should Council wish to change that direction, a motion to reconsider would be required.
Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. I thought that report actually had something in it that they would keep monitoring this and then report back later, because I know that most of council had a serious concerns with, I think, aviation, like the
Avian flu.
bird flu at that time, and they were looking at different ways for doing that. So I wasn't sure if that was built into that, but
It would
obviously
still
I was-
require a reconsideration vote.
Okay, so I guess that's where I was mistaken. I thought it was just left on there that it was put for further review, but okay, so I guess we'll let that individual know that that has to take place prior to that, but.
Okay.
Thanks, Your Worship. We already dealt with the Emsley Field Grandstand. So next item under communications, the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority 2027 draft budget and municipal levy apportionment. A letter has been received from Dusty Underhill, General Manager, Secretary Treasurer for the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority regarding the authority's 2027 draft budget and municipal levy apportionment. That's for council's information. Next item relates to the Eastern Lake Erie Regional Conservation Authority amalgamation. A joint statement has been received from Morgan Griffin, Chair, Catfish Creek Conservation Authority, John Challenor II, Chair, Grand River Conservation Authority, Todd Noble, Chair, Kettle Creek Conservation Authority, and Doug Brunton, Chair, Long Point Region Conservation Authority, regarding the appointment of Samantha Lawson as Project Executive to chair the Regional Transition Committee and inaugural CAO for the Eastern Lake Erie Regional Conservation Authority. Again, for council's information. Next item relates to the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency Regional Transition Committees. A letter has been received from Hassan Bassett, CEO, Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency, regarding members appointed to transition committees to support the implementation of Regional Conservation Authority consolidation. And the last item on the agenda under communications from the Ombudsman Ontario relating to the 2025 annual report. A letter has been received from Barbara Finlay, Acting Ombudsman of Ontario, regarding the 2025-2026 annual report. The report is available electronically on the Ombudsman's website. Unless there are any items under communications or unfinished business or new business of council.
Councilor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. I'm glad the fire chief is in attendance tonight because I have a question for him. If you noticed in the paper a few weeks ago, there was a big fire in Strathroy. And when the fire department got there, it was magnesium on fire. And I don't know if they had to get some special stuff to put on it. I don't know if they had it on. And I don't know, is it dangerous for the firefighters to come on a site with magnesium? And the third part, do we have magnesium in the city? So those three questions for you there. Mr. Gregory, thank you.
Chief, how's your magnesium knowledge?
Your Worship, it's great.
All right.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councilor Herbert. So a great question. I read about that and I saw some of the media stuff over that. Yes, we have magnesium in the city. A lot of the shops that do tool and die work and specialty shops like that, they do carry magnesium. We are prepared for any of those fires. We carry a special extinguisher on our trucks that's designed just for that. You can't put water on it. Water intensifies magnesium fires. It just creates heat. Magnesium fires burn around anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 degrees. It is dangerous to the firefighters, but during initial, indications through alarms and whatever, and I think through the building code and the fire code, if anybody has magnesium in theirs, they have to put in specialty systems that are integrated into their sprinkler systems or whatever they have. It would be a chemical area where it's stored. And also one of the other things, if you don't have enough agent applied, you can put sand on it. And we carry an abundant amount of sand. Sand will put it out too. So it's a matter of smothering the magnesium to put it out. And we have that all day long, and our training officers here too. So that's some of the thing that we train our firefighters in different aspects to mitigate.
Great. Councilor Reimel.
Say, Chief Gregory, just stay there. So when you're talking about Strathroy, anyway, I have a fire question. I just wondered if you could give an update on the vacant building registry that we're going to do. Just, there was a house that blew up in London. It was vacant. And I just wondered where we are in that process, because that's a concern. And just another piece of that, do we need some type of listing of new businesses? Because I don't think we have not to have a building permit or whatever, but just some listing that fire, police, everyone's aware that here's this new building and maybe they're holding propane tanks, maybe it's full of magnesium, who knows? But, and then we could also give them a little welcome wagon, with stuff about the city, but just as two pieces, do we need a listing of building and where are we at with the vacant building?
To your worship, to Councilor Rimmel. So Kim and I, Fire Prevention Officer Destin and I are working towards that. We have to set up a meeting with Lou and his team to put it all together. We don't like we said before, we don't want to do this, piece it together. We want to make this spectacular. There's some other ones out there. Other municipalities have reached out to us and said, great idea. How can we, look at this and what can we do to help you? So this will be big. The second part of your question as indication of new businesses. I know our fire prevention team meets with new businesses, go in and say it's a restaurant or whatever it is. They go through the fire safety plans. They look what they have. They register. They're in our crisis system at work through our dispatch. They have a list of the owners, what the contents are, and what their fire safety plans are too. So anything that's new, our fire prevention team go into those buildings, check out those buildings and do all the means of egress, whether they have the right amount of extinguishers, lighting, and all those processes that are done before that they're given access to open as a new building.
Just a question. So do we have a formal listing where new businesses register somewhere? Like, how do you know that a new business has come to the city?
So they reach out to us usually through, I think it's through planning that we get it and other departments that we get an idea that something. So if somebody's building a new restaurant, they have to go through us. So we'll get a building permit. It'll come to us first and building permit, and then we do the follow-up of stuff like that.
Okay, so it just might be a thought. If we know that new businesses are coming, just is that a way we could communicate things, a little package about the city is, things to help them with their planning around the city. But anyway, thank you very much.
Back
was
to the old
worried
days,
about
like
the-
welcome wagon. We used to get a little basket. Like,
Yeah, we're just worried about that building blowing up, and-
thank you.
Great. Other new business or unfinished business questions? It's been a very busy summer for a lot of people in our community, but looking forward to the rest of August and into Labor Day before we're back together as a team. So perfect. Councillor Herbert?
I'd like to thank our customer service department. I've had 3 people call me and I said, I'll forward me the information. I'll send it on to customer service. That's what's happened.
Yep.
2 of the people got back to me and said that they had a response from customer service with a detailed thing. I thought that was pretty impressive. So anyway, thank you to the customer service.
It is the right route. And I hear from almost all of the council now that that's the referral. Right? So it's perfect and lots of good result because of it. Nothing else under unfinished or new? Moving on.
Thanks, Your Worship. No public notices this evening. We do have a notice of motion previously from Councillor Baldwin Sands. I have a motion that's moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, whereas the City of St. Thomas is positioned to experience and capitalize on significant regional growth, and whereas the city provides a breadth of services to its growing community, including parks and recreation, and whereas at its March 9th, 2026 regular meeting, Council received report PR 0726 from the Director of Parks and Recreation relating to the Community and Aquatic Center feasibility study final report. And whereas report PR 0726 noted in part that the appended consultant report does not provide the depth of analysis that staff would regard as sufficient to support implementation at this stage. And further, that until a broader growth-related financial framework is established, staff are not in a position to appropriately assess the financial feasibility of the proposed aquatic center. And whereas Council passed a resolution associated with report PR 0726 that Council shall have the ability to provide direction on further action relating to the study. And whereas the town of Uxbridge has proceeded with a similar project and associated guidelines that appear to align with the intent of a future city-related community and aquatic center project. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to investigate and report back on alternatives to the Community and Aquatic Center project that consider and integrate, where possible, the formulas, methodology, and objectives associated with Uxbridge's project approach. Again, I have mover as Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Reimel, Councillor Baldwin Sands, it's yours. I'll let you go first and then I'll go to Councillor Reimel.
Thank you. Just to add a little more context, is that what Uxbridge is in currently building, and the process is 13 months rather than years away, is an 8-lane, 25-meter pool with a full community center, which is 3 gyms, and in one of the gyms is also a performance stage. All of that is being done underneath an umbrella of $16 million, and those are current numbers, and they received 50% provincial funding in order to move this forward. So the community of Uxbridge is a population of just over 22,000, and they are putting this program together, and it is to be completed very, very soon. So that is what I'm hoping for today, and I am grateful that someone seconded that we do develop more of the framework rather than that what was in the consultant report about 6 months ago, and have the city investigate freely this type of option and bring a full community center to this community.
Councillor Reimel, questions or comments?
I just had a comment that the expert, just the concern that the actual pool is not built yet. It hasn't, you know, I know it's in the process. They've started some site preparation, but it hasn't been built and it hasn't been tested as far as how is the dome going to work with the humidity, because humidity in pools are a big issue, and especially with the cold weather. So it's just a concern that to try and investigate a project that hasn't actually been established is a concern.
I think the question, and during my investigation of this and attending several workshops on what was available over the last few months, is that there is a 25-year warranty that comes available with this type of program. And there is extended warranties that are also available. So there is a 25-year warranty on that dome. And when it comes to what it can accommodate, usually a lifespan of a pool of this sort is about 25 years. But you do hope that there is a longer lifespan for it, as some pools have been in existence for longer. But I do appreciate the question, because yes, that is something that people do bring up, but it comes with a very extensive warranty. And that's why I want the city to investigate, city staff to investigate, and bring a report back.
If I can just ask that you're asking our Parks and Rec Department to do this research? Is that what the motion reads? Okay. Councillor Wiki?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm okay with this certainly happening, but for me, it's a matter of staff capacity. And then I have one other comment. So if this is like, I guess, I mean, there's lots of, Councillor Baldwin Sands has a mountain of information available. And if this is I don't have any idea, like if this is a 20-hour project for staff, that's one thing. If it's a 100-hour project for staff, that's a whole other thing. So if this can be done in a reasonable amount of time, I'd be pleased to hear from this, because the challenge is like, and Councillor Baldwin Sands and I have talked about this, is not a secret. Like, if we had the Sprung and Mirtha people come here, it's less information. It's informational, but it's an infomercial. If we have our staff doing it, I think we're getting a more of a third party look at this, which I'm all in favor of, right? So I guess that is, I've satisfied my second part about it not being an infomercial, and I'm looking for information perhaps from the Parks Director in how much time she thinks something like this would take to do properly for us. Thank you.
Go ahead, but I'm going to go to the people who are going to have to do the work. So go ahead.
Absolutely. There is templates that are there. And that's one of the things that I have done with the Uxbridge project and what I've been looking at. The best way to describe it is it's a program in a box. So here it is, this is what you need, this is what you have to do, et cetera. All of the materials are provided. Uxbridge has just gone through it. The Uxbridge staff have just gone through it. The city council has just gone through it, and the local MPP was very actively involved as well. So all of the pieces are there. There is, I understand that there is no hiccups that could happen with having to use something else that is already there, because those templates do exist and they're ready to go. And I think Uxbridge, if we can able to do this, and then I actually do want to hear from the staff how long they think this investigation would last. Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple of questions, if you don't, can I jump in, Gary? Because first off, Uxbridge is under construction, so we certainly could get them from them, and we certainly probably have friends we could probably do that with. But we're talking about a structure that I don't need to see a new one. I need to see a 25-year-old one. Who's got one? The motion only asks us to go look at a new one under construction. Do you know where else Sprung has built, say in the last 10, 15, or 20 years, that we could go ask them, how is it holding up? How did it do? How were they to work with? Because I don't want to expand your motion, but I don't want to make, I'm not sure going and looking at another brand new project gives us much, but go ahead.
It is a very good question, and I appreciate it. There has been some others that have been done, and one of the things that I have been investigating is one particular one that was put in a few years ago was not maintained properly during the COVID years.
Okay.
They drained the pool. If you have a backyard pool, you don't drain your pool unless you're going to completely replace the liner. I've been working on pools and especially backyard pools for a very long time, and do appreciate that there is some questions that need to be investigated by staff, and I strongly support staff to do that type of investigation, but I do have a strong feeling that it's going to come back in a very positive manner.
Super. Adrian. And then I'll get back to you, Councilor Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to council, we'll do our best to bring back a report that is, sourced from consultants. And I do know of another municipality that has used this product, so we can reach out to them as well, and make sure they're cognizant of time. So just bringing back some facts for council to decide if that's a further exploration that we want to do to look into that product.
Councilor Baldwin says, I'm considering this in addition to the pool report we already have, the community center report we already have. You want this as an addendum to it or an addition to it?
As an addition, because that's what we want to see, is not just the expansion of what we were given in that report. The framework that we were given was not enough to include this type of investigation. And to have those pieces to investigate, I think will be to benefit not just to the department, but to the citizens of this community.
Okay. So what I just suggested, that's what you're thinking too? Okay, Councilor Clark, you had a question.
Thanks. Yeah, Mike, you have raised my issue was looking at not just Uxbridge, but I'm sure the company has dealt with other municipalities in Ontario with our weather and our similar factors. And so I'd like to hear from some of those as well. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
I do understand that there are two other municipalities that are currently doing the same Uxbridge project as part of theirs, and they're very quick, and they're also almost to completion as well.
Yeah. But again, as I suggested, I'm not looking for one that's happening right now, brand new. I'd like to know what it looks like 10 years down the road or 15 years down the road, because I understand what they're saying to us. So let's let you have a fairly good indication of the direction you're being given if this motion was to pass. Okay. Further questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Passes, carries. Great. I'm sorry, Lori. Sorry, Councilor Baldwin says, did we have a kind of requested back date in your motion? As soon as possible or by certain dates?
I believe that would be up to staff, but we would want to see it during this term of council.
Yep. We can? Perfect.
Thanks, Your Worship. At this time, there is a need to go into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with the proposed or pending acquisition of land, Casewell Corridor, a proposed or pending disposition of land, sale of land, Yarmouth Yards, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, municipal facility planning, and a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization relating to Southwestern Public Health at 7:38 p.m.
Questions or comments? No, we need to move.
Sorry, I get a moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Reimel.
Okay, for all of you here, before I call the vote, I'll let you know we're going to go into closed session. When we rise from closed session to come back, we'll vote on certainly the bylaws from today's meeting and anything that might come out of the closed session meeting. So I want to thank all of those that joined us tonight in the gallery, and for all of you following us at home for a fairly long, but it's a one month meeting or one meeting month. So all those in favor of going to closed? Any opposed? That's carried. See you in a bit.
At this time, I have a motion to rise from closed session. So I have a motion that council now rise from closed session at, time are we at here? Sorry, 9:08 p.m. And further that staff proceed as directed on the closed session items dealing with the Queso Corridor, sale of land, Yarmouth Yards, municipal facility planning, and Southwestern Public Health. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? We're rising.
Thanks, Your Worship. We'll now move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to Council and Committee of the Whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Okay, first bylaw.
First bylaw this evening is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 10th day of August, 2026.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Next bylaw.
Sorry. Second bylaw is a bylaw to temporarily remove certain lands from part lot control. This relates to block 38 on registered plan 11M 274 of the McGregor Farm Phase 2A.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Next bylaw.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to appoint a property standards bylaw officer and noise control officer. And this individual is Shira Wiggins.
Questions or comments? Yes?
Sorry, are these full-time positions or part-time? Two new staff or?
Through your worship to council, this is a full-time property standards officer position.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Next bylaw.
Next bylaw is a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 118 to the City of St. Thomas official plan. This is to permit clinic, business office, and residential uses at 4 Morrison Drive and 358 Elm Street relating to file number 30226.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed.
Fifth bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 50-88, being the zoning bylaw for the City of St. Thomas. This is to permit clinic, business office, and residential uses at 4 Morrison Drive and 358 Elm Street relating to file number 2-08-26.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Next bylaw.
Sixth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the submission of an application to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for financing of certain capital works of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas, and to authorize the long-term borrowing for such capital costs through the issue of debentures to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Next.
The seventh bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas and the trustees of the Central Congregation of the United Church of Canada. This relates to the Affordable Housing Grant Program at 135 Wellington Street.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Next.
Eighth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas and the YWCA St. Thomas Elgin. This relates to the Affordable Housing Grant Program for 53 Hiawatha Street.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Next.
Ninth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas and Eastwood Housing Corporation. This relates to the Affordable Housing Grant Program at 200 Burwell Road.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed.
10th bylaw is a bylaw to establish the St. Thomas Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Next.
And the 11th and final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the adoption of a council staff relations policy, policy GA04.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. I rise and report the successful passing of 11 bylaws.
Your worship, I have a motion that the report of council and committee of the whole on the following bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time and gross, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered. This has been moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
And finally, I have a motion for adjournment that we do now adjourn at 9:13 p.m. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.